Expectations are a powerful thing. They're powerful for us being able to communicate to other people what our values are. And they're also very powerful in keeping people making certain decisions, which I find personally very fascinating. Now, many moons ago, the incredible Eleanor Meeker from Yellow Boots Enterprises taught a course, and it was on emotionally healthy relationships. And one of the things that she taught for the basis of relationships and healthy relationships was identifying your values. And by identifying your values, your expectations begin to find a foundation to rest on, basically. And then one of the things that she talked about was that expectations only work really in a healthy way if they're expressed and agreed upon by both parties. So when you look at life, when you look at fiction, that's not really how things work. But it does when you think about stories in the concept of expectation through the lens of expectation, it really just clarifies a lot of things. And I've only just recently made this connection that one of the things I really detest about a lot of TV shows and a lot about generally speaking rom-com or romance kind of stories is that there's drama. And for me, it feels baseless. Like, there's no reason why we had to do this. Why didn't you just sit down and have a conversation like this? And it's very frustrating for me. And one of the reasons why is one of my values is authenticity. And so my expectation is that you show up as you are, and you are open and honest with the people around you, that you, to varying degrees with, the type of relationship you have, of course. So when I see the trope of people getting jealous and instead of going and asking about it from their crush, their parents, their competitor, their lover, their whoever, they just go off and try to make them jealous, or there's this big misunderstanding, and basically the third act problem is simply, or solution is simply, that they actually sit down and have a conversation. And if they had done that in the second act, there would have never been a conflict, and we could have had either just a really nice relationship, or maybe they could have accomplished something, besides just getting together, tearing down each other's characters, and then going, oops, sorry, and moving on. This is simplified. This is oversimplified, to be perfectly honest, but that's genuinely how I feel watching and reading these stories. That it's just be who you are and communicate. And if it doesn't work for the other person, that's fine. Just be honest and let it go. And I realize that this is an unrealistic expectation that I have regarding life. So one of the things about that is I don't engage these stories much because it violates my expectation, and I know it. So rather than making myself upset and getting increasingly irritated by this genre, I tend not to involve myself in the drama shows or the drama stories. That's how my expectations work. My value is authenticity, and I really struggle when I have to walk through something where someone's not being authentic in some way, and it really is emotionally distressing for me. So, why do you care? You care because this is another way to bring an interesting perspective on your reading and on your writing. So, how do I want to do this? Okay, we're going to do a quick blip of information on the Daevabad series by Trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. There are 3 main characters. I'm mostly going to talk about 2, but it does apply to all 3. Nahri is an Egyptian thief who's taken to the Jinn city of Daevabad by Dara, who is an older jinn. And then they encounter Prince Alizayd Qahtani, who is a jinn prince. And in this world that she has crafted, you have like such an elegant and layered, complicated economic, religious, political, cultural, racial setting, mess that you put these three characters in. And every single one of these characters has a base value that informs all of their decisions. And it builds their expectations. So their expectations are based on this value. The two I want to talk about today, very briefly. What can I do? The three I'm going to talk about today, very briefly, is Dara is a protector. Like, you protect the person who's under your care. That is his value. Like, I value this person, whoever is in my care, and his expectations are that he's going to do whatever it takes, and he's justified in doing whatever it takes to protect whoever's in his care. Nahri is a survivor. She's gonna find a way to make it through that day. And what that's gonna entail is gonna be different depending on the day. Ali is more... his values are a little bit less stated, quite as cut and dry. They're a little bit more complex. Partially because he's not he's at a higher level of the hierarchy of needs, basically. So rather than thinking about survival or his role, he's more concerned with the philosophical, theological positioning of his God and his belief system. And that's kind of how his value that's going to inform everything else. So you have these three characters, and what I love about this is at times they will express their expectations to the other person, not fully, and it's rarely in like a, can you please understand that this is how I feel, and I would really like our relationship to continue in X, Y, and Z. So if we can understand this and we can work within this, then that would be great. It's not typically like that. It's like, it's more of a slap. It's a backhanded thing. And it can be an explanation, but it's usually after something has already blown up. Emotionally, relationally. But what I absolutely love is that each of these three characters have observed the other characters and have gone, this is what you value, this is what you expect, and I'm going to push all these buttons, and I'm going to make you mad, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And some of it, like, there are a couple of decisions that are very specifically like, I'm going to piss you off, and I'm going to do it on purpose. And if we're honest, all of us, if we're actually paying attention to the people around us, we can probably figure out how to do that, and we're very adept at going, dink, hee, hee, hee. And it blows up in various degrees. But what's interesting about this is these characters, part of their arc is learning what the other person's expectations are and finding the value beneath it and deciding whether or not that's worthy or not. Like, they're kind of having to deal with each other and get to the heart of the other person. And what's beautiful is we can usually pretty quickly identify what pisses somebody off and whether or not we want to play that game. And these three characters in various combinations have points in this trilogy where, like, it's the big gesture moment, or it's the crisis moment, or it's an instinctual grab and go, say what you gotta say, accomplish what you gotta do. And in those moments, our values rise to the surface. In a fight, when you're triggered, whatever that value is that you want to protect is often what explodes out of your mouth or out of your body. Like, this is what I'm going to do because it's linked to my biggest fear, which is linked to my biggest value. So with these characters, when the big act comes, they act or they say something. And what's beautiful is the moment happens, and then later they kind of go, yeah, I should have seen that coming. I should have seen that coming. I know that person. And I should have known that is how they would have taken that one. Didn't, but I should have. And it's a beautiful, like, example of, I define character arc as being how you perceive yourself and the world around you, and having to rub up against conflict in other characters until you kind of shift and shape and grow and become who you are at the end of it. And so these characters, you genuinely see these three characters, these forces of nature, basically shaping each other. And it is an actual actively vocalized part of the story. And I love it because it actually elucidates the beauty and the alchemy of relationships and of character growth and arc. So that's kind of like your practical, this is how it usually works. This one's just a little bit more vocal about it. But I'm sorry, baby. Did I scare you? I just woke up my baby. I'm sorry, love. Okay, you get it. An Irish wolfhound being startled awake with bedhead is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. I love you. It's okay. You can go back to bed. I am sorry. I put my book down on her foot. I apologize. I don't know that she forgives me, but we'll move on. So the other story that I just finished recently, and it's so fascinating because the expectations of this character might as well be another character in this book. It's incredible. So the first book is called What the River Knows. The second one is what I have here, and it's Where the Library Hides. It's by Isabel Ibanez. It is exquisite. I love it. It's set in Egypt in the, I think, like the 1800s. Yeah, the 1800s. Maybe the 19th. But yeah, probably 19th actually, now that I think of it. Really good magic realism. Fascinating world building. It's basically historical fantasy. So it is set in actual historical time period of Egyptian exploration and exploitation, to be honest. But the way that she couches magic in it is really, really interesting. So anyway, this character, the main character, is Inez, and this girl, she knows what she values, and she just goes after it, dude. She just goes after it, and I love that. I respect that about her. But what's interesting is a lot of us don't actually know what our values are. This is why I took a class on it. I didn't know that values were something that could be defined, or that it didn't register that they were different for everybody. And so in this class, it was really interesting to see how, like, some of my closest friends, how their values differed from mine, and the conflicts that it was actually bringing up in our lives, because we had slightly different values, but we kind of, like, were close enough that it worked, but our expectations weren't spoken to the point where we could understand it and work with each other very well. So it was a bit of a rough patch, but it was great. It worked. Growth. Character arcing. So this character, Inez, knows precisely what she values, and she knows precisely what she's after, and she knows precisely what she expects of the people around her, and she just comes out and says it, and then she acts on it, and it's consistent from page 1 to page end, and it's just there. and, and what's fascinating about this is her expectations have a visceral impact on every single character in her book. And some of them are elevated and others are destroyed by it. But all of them have to really wrestle with Inez's expectations and her values specifically. And they can manipulate it. They can agree with it. They can disagree with it. They can try and work around it. They can try and change her mind about it. But it's so immovable and so felt and spoken in this story that it actually dictates most of the chaos and the action that occurs in this book, in this duology. And it's really interesting because when you have an unbendable character, that kind of makes him an easy mark, but it kind of doesn't at the same time. So in the Daevabad series, you have a little bit more flexibility. It also covers a lot longer span of time. So we change with time. Like there with more experience comes a lot more clarity or confusion regarding what we value. That's just kind of how that goes. So through the years with these 3 characters in the City of Brass that I'm currently putting my hand on, but you can't see because it's out of the camera, there's more bending, there's more understanding, there's more alchemy that happens between the characters that is deep and long-lasting, and it grows and it intensifies, and it's really quite a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful way to tell a story about three characters and how they are going to shape the world they live in based on their expectations of themselves, their values, and their expectations of these other characters. And it's really quite well done. Whereas the other one is kind of like, it almost feels like a test of expectation. Like this value that this character has isn't a bad thing. And it has grown into some, I would say fairly reasonable expectations. And it's almost like it's a lab where it's like, okay, if you take these expectations and you put it into this situation and shake it up, like what happens? Will they come out again? Will these expectations come out on the other side? Will they be refined? Are they good expectations to have? Does it depend on the relationships as to whether or not these expectations work? So I could continue over and over all the stories, but these 2 are really interesting to look lenses to view expectations. And I bet if you look at some of the stories that you are currently engaging, including your own, being able to identify what the value is for the person, it might help you identify like those moments, those big emotional moments. What are they acting out of? And if they're acting out of something that's surprising to you or the reader, it's possible that you're not connecting their values and expectations quite as well as you might think. You can look at it as like a fear thing, like what are they afraid to lose? If hey, this is what they really value and they're just gonna hold on to. If that doesn't quite translate for your brain, what are they afraid to lose? Might also be another way to look at it. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. I know for me, it really changed how I viewed the people in my life and how to approach my life and my jobs and the way I engage my world. Because if I expect something, if I say I value something in my life, my expectations need to meet those, and then I also need to just kind of follow through with that. And as I was processing this for myself, I was also creating a character of my own. Her name's Willa, and I hadn't realized this. It was painful when I realized this. But I was using her emotions and her reactions and her interactions with people as a drama device. So she just kind of like, she was an NPC, basically, who just, when I needed somebody to create some conflict because, you know, we needed a complication, she was right there. And that's not fair to her. And it's also not the kind of story that I want, because again, I value authenticity. So why am I creating drama stories when I don't enjoy reading them? Like, why am I writing them? And so it allowed me to kind of step back and go, okay, what does she actually value? What does she fear to lose? What are her expectations? And while I don't think she's completely fleshed out yet, I still have some key things that I need to discover about her. She is so much further along, and her interactions and the conversations that we've had in the crux moments where people are interacting and reacting out of their own deep emotional place, they ring truer, and they ring more like an independent person who's engaging in this rather than a plot device in a skirt, you know? So yeah, give it a shot with your stories. Tell me what you think. If you have any wonderful stories that elucidate this concept or defy it, let me know. I would love to hear.